A woman alone, walking the corridors of power in Tudor England, openly defying the orthodoxy of the state religion. Was it bravery or treason? Anne Askew, known as such in court records, was not a noblewoman by title, yet she became one of the most infamous figures executed under King Henry VIII. Born in 1521 to Sir William Askew, a Lincolnshire landowner loyal to the crown, Anne was educated, a rarity for women of her time. But education, in her case, was not a passive virtue, it was a weapon. In those dangerous times, England was torn apart by religious conflict. King Henry VIII had broken away from the Catholic Church to create his own English church. But the rules kept changing, and people never knew what was safe to believe. One wrong word about religion could mean death. Anne was different from other women of her time. While others stayed quiet, Anne spoke boldly about her beliefs. She could read and write, which was very rare for women then. Most girls only learned to cook and care for children, but Anne used her education to challenge the powerful. Anne became a Protestant, rejecting many Catholic teachings. Most dangerously, she denied transubstantiation, the Catholic belief that bread and wine actually became Christ's body and blood during church services. Anne said they were just symbols. This disagreement could get you killed in 1540s England. The government's Act of 6 Articles from 1539 made denying transubstantiation punishable by death. Anne knew this law but didn't care. During her trial, she declared, "I would rather read 5 lines in the Bible than hear 5 masses in the church." These weren't careless words, they were deliberate challenges to government authority. By 1545, Anne was preaching publicly in London. She spoke clearly and convinced many people. This made her extremely dangerous to Catholic leaders like Bishop Stephen Gardiner and Chancellor Thomas Wriothesley. They saw her as attacking King Henry's authority itself, since he was head of the English Church. The situation became complicated because Queen Catherine Parr, Henry's 6th wife, also had Protestant sympathies. Authorities suspected Anne might have connections to important court ladies. This made her case about politics, not just religion. They arrested Anne once and released her, but when she continued preaching, they arrested her again. This time, she wouldn't walk free. After her trial and death sentence, Anne's judges wanted more than just her execution. They believed she knew names of other Protestant women, especially at court. They wanted to arrest Queen Catherine Parr herself. So Wriothesley and Sir Richard Rich made an extraordinary decision. They would torture Anne first to make her reveal names. This was shocking because torture was rarely used on women, especially those already sentenced. What they planned was extreme even by Tudor standards. They used the rack, a wooden frame with rollers that stretched victims' bodies until joints separated. Anne was dragged into the Tower of London's torture chamber. According to her own account, the 2 powerful men personally operated the device, stretching her until the strength in my arms and legs was completely destroyed. During the agony, they kept demanding names of court ladies who shared her beliefs, but Anne refused, no matter how much pain they inflicted. She later wrote, "They did put me on the rack because I confessed no ladies or gentlewomen to be of my opinion." The pain was incredible, but Anne's spirit never broke. Even while her body was being destroyed, she held onto her beliefs. "I had rather to die than to break my faith," she wrote. Here was a young woman, alone and tortured, still refusing to betray her convictions. When the torture ended, Anne was completely broken physically. Her shoulders and hips were dislocated. She could no longer walk. Guards carried her back to her cell, but though her body was ruined, her spirit remained unbroken. The torturers hoped pain would make Anne cooperate. Instead, it made her more determined. Their cruelty only exposed the government's desperation and brutality. Even in her broken condition, the court demanded her execution. July 16, 1546, was execution day at Smithfield, London's famous burning site for heretics. Because Anne couldn't walk, she was carried to her death in a chair. 3 men also died that day, but Anne drew the crowd's attention. She was the first English woman anyone remembered being both tortured and burned. At Smithfield, Anne was chained to a wooden stake, too weak to stand alone. A small seat supported her broken body. Executioners piled dry wood bundles called faggots around the stake. Witnesses said Anne appeared calm despite everything she'd endured. The authorities offered one last chance to save her life by changing her beliefs. She refused. Bishop Nicholas Shaxton, a former Protestant who'd returned to Catholicism, preached to the crowd, but Anne completely ignored him. Her silence was final defiance. Executioners tied gunpowder around her neck for a quicker death. When they lit the wood, flames began spreading upward. Throughout this horror, Anne never cried out or begged for mercy. She faced death with the same courage she'd shown during torture. Anne died without revealing names or abandoning her beliefs, but her death wasn't the end. Her writings, smuggled from prison, were published as the Examinations of Anne Askew. These spread her ideas far beyond what preaching alone could achieve. Protestant reformers across Europe read Anne's story and were inspired. John Foxe included her in his Acts and Monuments, writing she was burned for the testimony of Jesus. Her suffering showed that government brutality couldn't destroy faith, it made her message more powerful. Anne's story became a symbol of religious persecution's cruelty. It showed people that their government would torture and kill innocents to maintain power. This made many question whether such authority deserved loyalty. Her case remains one of English history's most shocking examples of religious persecution. It demonstrated the danger of following conscience against government policy, but also showed that some would rather die than abandon their deepest beliefs. Anne's courage still inspires those facing persecution today. Her unbroken spirit under the worst circumstances proves that conviction can triumph over cruelty. Her words echo across centuries, "I would rather to die than to break my faith."